we've been all over the country, and you know, this is obviously Peterhead now, but we've been up to Orkney, we've been to down to Dumfries, we've been to Eyemouth, we've been to Skye, Fort William. We've kind of been almost everywhere now, except I think we're still waiting to go to the Western Isles, and we haven't been to Shetland. But those two are very much on our to-do list. And everywhere we go, we get these fantastic crowds, and it's really amazing. What's that? Isla next month as well. I know that'll be great. It's a gin tasting. That'll be very, very, very good. Yeah, my wife's coming along to that one actually, so that'll be great. She's not having a jar of her gins. So it's been fantastic, and it's all kind of really gone off without a hitch and been really kind of positive. The only kind of we had one wee bit of a nightmare one time in Dunoon. And it's incredible the crowd we had in Dunoon. There were 150 people. It was like, you know, it's like half the town. But the bad thing was that it turned out the hotel we'd booked into had a no wee ginger duck policy. So the management wasn't for letting Ginger in, but thankfully eventually we managed to persuade him after these 150 people, which is, you know, a significant portion of the town, all threatened to walk out and never go back into the hotel again. And I'm, you know, kind of live tweeting the thing and threatening them with a news story in the paper the next day. So eventually we got there. And the only other time that it's kind of gone wrong was actually when we were supposed to come to Peterhead. And I don't know if you guys were planning to come along to that one. We were really, really gutted because we've been looking forward to it for a long time, and obviously the beast from the east kind of put paid to that. And Paul and I were chatting. We left it as late as possible because we really didn't want to let anybody down. And we were kind of chatting to each other the night before, and I was like, "What do you think? Should we do it?" He's like, "What do you think?" And we both kind of wanted the other one to say.
What did the other one say? No,
no, I don't think we're going to make it. And to be honest, I nearly didn't even make it into work the next day, so we would have had no chance of making it to Peterhead. But apologies for that one, and I'm glad that we've been able to make it tonight. We started doing these kind of roadshow events, as I say, 2 years ago now, and there was kind of several reasons for it. We started in St Andrew's Day in Inverness, but one of the things was that we wanted to, and one of the things that I loved about the first independence referendum in 2014 was that kind of town hall atmosphere that you had, and you would come along and you'd go and talk to people about politics, and these kind of really inspiring speakers would come to your town and talk about politics and talk about, you know, possibilities and hope, and what we wanted to do was try and bring a little bit of that back, and that was almost kind of 2 years ago now, and I think it's been fantastic, and Paul is, you know, a fantastic speaker, and we'll hear from him later on. But another couple of reasons that we wanted to do that was we wanted to meet our readers, because it's incredible how differently readers in various kind of areas of the country feel about the paper and the kind of feedback that they have. So what I'm really keen for tonight is during the break or later on or whatever, if you come up to me and, you know, if you've got any feedback or if you've got any questions about the paper, more than happy to answer them. But we also wanted for the readers to meet us and to meet Paul and me and to see the kind of people behind the paper and who work on the paper, because one of the most frustrating things for me is I sometimes see people on Twitter saying, you know, the National's just a cash cow for Newsquest, or it's, you know, it's a very cynical thing to kind of soak up kind of pro-independence readers, when the truth is it's just me and a team of, I think there's 12 of us that all care very passionately about independence and get together and try to put the best paper that we can out. And I think we do that to the best of our ability. We were launched, as you know, in 2014 after the independence referendum in November, coming up for 4 years ago now. And we were launched really because of a complete failure of the Scottish newspaper industry to represent half the population and represent the views of half the population. And it's incredible really that there were 37 or 38 Scottish newspapers at the time, and only one of them, the Sunday Herald, supported independence and campaigned for it, despite the fact that nearly half the country backed it. And it was really interesting. I was speaking to Richard Walker about the decision of the Sunday Herald to come out for yes, and to come out and say it supports independence. I was speaking to them not long ago, maybe a few months ago now, and they came out for yes in May 2014. Now that's quite early for a newspaper to kind of make their views known on an issue or a campaign. Normally, you see papers, whether there's an election or whatever, they come out maybe 10 days before the vote or a week before the vote, and they say, right, this is who you should vote for, or this is what you should do. But they did it a few months, and I was speaking to him about it, and he said that they did it so early because they wanted to be the first newspaper to come out and support independence, and they were anticipating that several others would, which was a wee bit optimistic, I think, given how it kind of turned out. But it's funny that was the first newspaper, and then it ended up that Richard Walker, who was the editor, had to launch the second one as well. And I think it's a real credit to this movement and to our readers that we're still going nearly 4 years later and are actually doing not too bad, doing quite well. Because we really have been up against it, the National. You know, there's launching a new newspaper in 2014 was something that people said just couldn't be done. They said it was pointless. It was a dying industry, and we faced so many challenges. We got the worst slot in the newsstands because we were the new paper in town, and people actively tried to harm us. You know, there were people, and this is one of the most common things that we get from talking to people at events like this, is that they find that people are hiding the paper in the shops. I don't know, has anybody here kind of experienced the same thing? Yeah, plenty. So, but no other newspaper faces that kind of pressure. Another difficulty we have is that the National, closing the name, has to serve the whole of Scotland. And it's interesting that our readership is actually fairly well spread across the country. There are obviously, you know, if there's more people in a certain area, we'll sell more papers in a certain area, but we don't have a base or a focus like all the other Scottish papers. The Herald in Glasgow, the Scotsman in Edinburgh, you know, the kind of northeast papers. They can really focus on serving that base and put lots of copies out in the shops. But we're kind of spread really, really thin. So it's difficult for us to get our distribution right and to make sure that there are enough copies in the shops, because there's 4,500 shops in Scotland, and the National needs to be in all of them. So it's difficult for us financially to print enough copies. And that's why we get one of the kind of biggest bits of feedback we get is that it's sometimes difficult to find a copy. But we know that, and we really are trying our best, and that's why we've kind of launched a campaign recently to try and get people to reserve their copy in the newsagents every day, if they can, of course. And we're actually going to be launching a subscription for the first time to the paper edition, I think towards the end of next month. With some other exciting stuff as well, that I can't really talk about too much. But that'll be good. So yeah, we're actually doing not too bad. The worst thing, we had a fantastic kind of 3 months at the start of last year. See, when we thought we were going to have India F2, and Nicola Sturgeon came out and says, you know, let's do it, and Theresa May said, now's not time, and all that that 3 month, 4 month period, we were selling really, really, really well. And the disappointing thing for me is that after the general election, which was seen as a kind of setback for the SNP, I suppose particularly here in the northeast, our sales just kind of started going off again, and all that work that we'd put in to getting new readers and during that period kind of fell away. So I guess my pitch to you, is that we need people to be supporting us, in the down times, because it's vitally important that when the second referendum is called, we have a newspaper there that is countering all the other newspapers in that newsstand every morning. Because people say, you can talk about the national circulation and, okay, we don't sell as many copies as the Sun does or the Record, but our front pages are seen by millions of people on social media. They appear in millions of people's Facebook feeds, Twitter feeds. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people in Scotland walk past the newsstands every day and they see our headlines there, sitting there, and that's vitally important. The National gets onto the BBC paper reviews, our journalists get invited sometimes onto the BBC and STV. Paul doesn't.
No, they only asked me on once, and that was to slag off another pro-independence newspaper. I said, no.
Which one was that, I wonder? What I guess my basic pitch to you tonight, I suppose, is to make sure to keep buying us every day and make sure that we're there at the start of the next campaign, because there's so much that we could do, and once that starting gun's fired, I'm not worried about the national. I know that we'll be okay, and there'll be people, there'll be interest in independence, and there'll be interest in politics, and our circulation will pick up, but we really need you to kind of to back us until then. And on the subject of our front pages, we've kind of done some really good ones in our time, and it's obviously been a sort of a key selling point for us. We knew we wouldn't get decent slots in the newsstands. We knew we would be up against it. So what we did was we tried to make our front pages as shareable on social media as possible, so that people could see them before they went into the shops and come out and get it. And we've done some fantastic front pages. I quite like today's actually. And we've done some some funny ones. We've done some kind of really serious ones. We've done some which we probably shouldn't have done, but you can't get them all right, I don't think. But I just want to leave you with the fact that there's obviously one front page that our team hasn't been able to do yet, and it's the one that we're most keen to do. And that front page, someday, hopefully soon, will just say, Scotland voted yes, and is an independent country. Please stick with us and we'll make that happen, alright? Now listen, we're gonna, that's me for now, but what we're gonna do is Paul's gonna talk for a wee bit, and then we're gonna have a wee break, do the raffle, so buy up your raffle tickets, and then we'll take some questions in the kind of second half of tonight, if that's alright. So without further ado, Mr. Paul Kavanagh.
Hi there. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. It's really great to see such a good turnout. I know you're not here to see me, you're here for the Doug, because I know my place in the cosmic scheme of things. When I finally shuffle off this mortal coil, it will say, "Wee Ginger Doug," in big letters on my gravestone, and Paul Kavanagh in small letters. I was actually one time, not long after we started to do the National Roadshow events, and we were booked to do an event in Largs, and my partner was over, who's American, he was over for a week, and we went down to Largs for the day, and I was saying, I'm doing a talk down here, I don't know where it is, and he went to the toilet, and he came back and he says, go and have a look in the toilet. I don't need the toilet. He says, just go and have a look in the toilet. So I went into the toilet, and there was a poster for the event in the toilet. And I swear to God, that's the only time I've ever advertised myself in a public toilet. But I know that the Doug's really the star of the show. He's wandering about, if you want to clap him. If you want to have a photograph taken with him, Alison has very kindly supplied some sausages. So the dog used to be a Labour Party councillor from Lanarkshire in a previous incarnation, because he's highly susceptible to bribery. But make sure you give him the sausage after you took the photo, because otherwise he's not a stupid dog, and he'll just wander off with the sausage. So anyway, but like I says, I know that the Doug's really the star of the show, but we've been doing these talks, like Callum was saying, for a couple of years now. The one that we did in Dunoon, what he never said was they did finally relent and let us bring the dog in. But what it was we'd cleared it with the management beforehand that the dog was going to be coming. It's a Wee Ginger Doug event, so obviously there's going to be a Wee Ginger Doug there. And but they hadn't passed the message on to the reception. And what they were saying, the problem is that to get to the hall where the talk is, you have to take the dog through the restaurant, and you can't allow that because of hygiene rules. So what they advise, so it's been a long time, it's not changed much. But we've been the whole length and breadth of Scotland, from Orkney and Thurso to Skye, down to Campbelltown to Eyemouth. Eyemouth was a really interesting night. You wouldn't think there'd be much of an interest in independence somewhere like Eyemouth. It's 15 miles from the English border. It's a Tory constituency, And you really wouldn't think there would be people there that were interested in independence, but the village hall where we had it was packed full, and in the front 2 rows they were totally taken up with the local Girl Guides troupe, because they were there doing their politics badge. And it was really great, because we're always saying, you know, it's really important that we get young people involved in politics, and it was brilliant to see them there, but it meant that all the way through the night all I could think of was, don't say fuck, don't say fuck. And I did actually, I managed to get through the entire evening without swearing, except I did say wanker at one point, but then I was talking about a Tory MP, so I think that's allowed. But yeah, what I'm finding as I'm doing these talks, because I do talks as well as, you know, doing talks with the National, I do talks to other local Yes groups and SNP groups and Commonweal groups all over. And what I'm finding is that there's a real appetite. People are really champing at the bit, wanting to get started. You know, they want a campaign. But I think one of the things that's really, you know, we're wanting independence. And I don't think we need to wait for permission to start campaigning for independence, because this is our campaign. I think one of the great weaknesses we had in 2014 was that we allowed opponents of independence to portray it as being Alex Salmond's referendum. And it wasn't Alex Salmond's referendum, it was Scotland's referendum. And I think we need to, as a grassroots movement, start to campaign. We don't need to wait for Nicola Sturgeon or the Greens or anybody else to give us permission to start campaigning. We can start doing that now. And if we start to do that now, as you are doing it now, then we define and shape this campaign and political parties don't. It means that the political parties are responding to the grassroots movement instead of the grassroots movement backing up the political parties. And that's the way it should be, because this is a popular movement. This is a do-it-yourself referendum campaign. And I'm convinced now, you know, all the way through the first independence referendum, and I love saying the first independence referendum because it implies that there's going to be another. And the next Scottish independence referendum is going to be the last Scottish independence referendum, because we're going to win it and we won't need another one. But I'm convinced, you know, all the way through in 2014, the question was, should Scotland become an independent country? And I don't think that's the question anymore. The question now is, when should Scotland become an independent country? And the answer to that is as soon as bloody possible. And it's up to us to make that happen. And I'm convinced that we will. You know, Callum was talking about, you know, the newspapers and how, you know, in this country we have 38 daily and Sunday newspapers. In a country where approximately half the population supports Scottish independence, but the National and the Sunday Herald on a good day are the only newspapers that support Scottish independence. Now that's ridiculous, you know, that is utterly ridiculous. The media in a country is supposed to hold up a mirror to that society and to reflect it. Scotland doesn't see a reflection of itself. Scotland sees Ruth Davidson on Great British Bake Off. That's what we see in our media. We do not see a reflection of what Scotland's really like. You know, and I'm convinced that, you know, people talk about what's the big differences, because I lived in Spain for such a long time. What's the biggest differences between Catalonia and Scotland? And one of the biggest differences between Catalonia and Scotland, where likewise half the population approximately supports independence, the big difference, however, is that in Catalonia, half the media supports independence. They have a media which actually accurately reflects the range of opinions you'll find in Catalonia. There are anti-independence Catalan newspapers. There are pro-independence Catalan newspapers. There are there are public service broadcasters which give both sides a fair shake of the stick, because Catalonia controls its own broadcasting. You know, we in Scotland were arguing with the BBC for such a long time about having a 1 hour long news programme on BBC One. A Scottish Six, we called it. And I had to laugh because David Torrance, before he flounced off to London, wrote an article in the Herald, I believe it was, saying that getting a Scottish Six, a 1 hour long news programme that reflected Scotland, that reflected the world news and UK news from a Scottish perspective, was the holy grail of the Scottish independence movement, which made me laugh, because I always thought the holy grail of the Scottish independence movement was independence. But thanks to David Torrance, we discovered it's actually an extra half hour of Jackie Bird. But that's the way the argument was running in Scotland. We were trying to get an extra half hour of news from the BBC. In Catalonia, they've got a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news channel of their own, you know. And people say, but how come in Catalonia they can get 1.5 million people demonstrating out in the streets, whereas in Scotland, if we get 50,000 like we did in Glasgow a couple of months ago, we think that's really, really great? I mean, partly, of course, the difference is the weather. You know, you can organise an event in Catalonia for a few months ahead and be reasonably confident that you're going to have a nice sunny day to do it. You certainly can't do that in Scotland. But the biggest difference is the media. Because in Catalonia, the media actually reports on independence events before they happen. Because if there's going to be a big pro-independence event, that national figures are going to be coming along to speak at it, that's news that that's going to happen. The Scottish media never ever reports on pro-independence events before they happen. They report on them in a half-assed manner after the event, usually to sneer at how many people turned up on a wet Saturday in Glasgow. They never ever tell you that they're going to be happening. But it's only by informing people before the event that people can actually make up their own minds about whether or not they want to go. And that's what they do in Catalonia. Now, I'm convinced that the biggest obstacle we face in this country to get Scottish independence is the media. We are up against a barrage of opposition from a media which is overwhelmingly biased against Scottish independence. It is overwhelmingly biased in favour of the existing settlement, the status quo, the British state. We see that just the past few weeks about the whole damn money scandal with the Conservatives. You know, we have Ruth Davidson's party has received some £368,000, I believe it is, from strange anonymous sources, which may or may not have broken electoral law. We don't know, because the Scottish media, by and large, isn't investigating it. They're not doorstepping her the way that they doorstepped Michelle Thompson, the former SNP MP for Edinburgh West, who, as it turned out, hadn't actually done anything. But they hounded that woman in the street. They camped outside her front door. Ruth Davidson gets a free pass, you know, because she's one of their own. And that's what we're up against in this country, you know. And I honestly believe if we had a media in this country which was an honest reflection of the range of opinion in Scotland, we'd be independent already. I firmly believe that. And that's how I got into this whole rant about independence to begin with. I was still when I was living in Spain, and I'd given up work to look after my partner, who had been diagnosed with at the time had the early symptoms of vascular dementia. And I'd given up work to look after him, and I was used to comment on various politics blogs, you know, just something to do really. And I used to comment on the Blether with Brian blog on BBC Scotland. That was back when BBC actually allowed people, ordinary punters, to have an opinion about Scottish politics, you know, that we pay for. And they actually allowed ordinary punters to say things about Scottish politics on their website. And I used to comment on there with a couple of other people that I got to know when various other politics forums, and we swapped email addresses and we kept in touch that way. And one of them you might know is G.A. Ponsonby. And then there was the Stephen Purcell affair in Glasgow. Stephen Purcell, you might not remember, was the leader of Glasgow Council. And he was headed for high things. He was going to be in high office. Some people were even saying that he was a potential future Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Now, to his credit, Stephen has since come out in favour of Scottish independence, which is a good thing. But he left his post in Glasgow Council under something of a cloud. It was a cloud of cocaine, as it turned out. And the line that the BBC was taking, the line that they were snorting, I should say, was that we were all invited to sympathise with poor Stephen and his struggle with mental health issues. Now, addiction is a serious mental health issue, but, you know, I'm not an SNP member. You know, for purposes of full disclosure, I should point out that I was a member of a political party once, for 6 weeks, when I was 19 and a student at Glasgow University. I joined the Socialist Workers' Party because I fancied their West of Scotland lesbian and gay organiser and dismally failed to get off with them. And that kind of made me lose interest in politics. And then I got a letter from them 6 weeks later telling me that I was purged for bourgeois nationalism because I wanted a Scottish Socialist Republic, but the real reason that they threw me out was because I called their West of Scotland organiser a middle-class wanker trying to start the revolution in Newton Mearns. So anyway, but that's the only time in any political party. But what really annoyed me and what really annoyed J.A. Ponsonby and what really annoyed a few other people was that when we tried to say to the BBC, there was all these other allegations flying around about Stephen Purcell. Allegations of misappropriation of council funds, allegations of bullying in the council, allegations of association with some really, really dodgy criminal figures in organised crime in Glasgow. In the lesbian and gay community in Glasgow, which is very small and very gossipy, there was some very lurid stories floating about. None of this was being investigated on BBC Scotland at all, because Stephen Purcell had dinner meetings once a month with management from BBC Scotland and with the heads of British nationalist newspapers in this country, and they were very much trying to protect one of their own. And whenever you tried to mention on the Leather with Brian blog about any of these wider issues, no matter how carefully you phrased it in order to make sure it wasn't defamatory or anything else, it was immediately censored by the BBC. And that pissed J.A. Ponsonby off so much that he decided that he personally was going to take on the entire weight of the British nationalist media in Scotland by himself. And that's when he founded Newsnet Scotland. And I was one of the early contributors to it. I published a magazine when I lived in Spain. That was my main job. And that's how I learned how to write, because when you're writing a magazine, it's the deadline's coming up, you're the editor, somebody's let you down for an article. It was Features magazine, it was about Spanish culture, Spanish history, all this kind of thing, all the kind of information that English-speaking people needed to know about living in Spain. And when you've got a couple of blank pages, you've got to sit down and write something. And that's how I learned how to write. Because what I discovered was that there's no such thing as writer's block, there's only I can't be arsed. But when it's your arse that's on the line, then you can be arsed and you do something. So that's how I learned how to write. But I'd given that up because, Andy wasn't well and the Spanish economy was even sicker. So the magazine wasn't making any money, and I'd given up work to look after him. So I was, chatting away on blogs about Scottish politics. So when he launched this Newsnet, it started off as an email newsletter that delivered to your inbox. And I says to him, look, you've got some really good articles in this, you've got some really interesting stuff, but the spelling and the punctuation is atrocious. Now you might think that doesn't matter, it's the facts, it's the information that counts, but it does matter. Because if you send something out that's badly spelled, badly punctuated, that's all people notice. And they say to themselves, if you can't be asked to check your spelling, you can't be asked to check your facts. And it really affects your credibility. I says, I've been editing a magazine for over 10 years. I know this stuff, You desperately need a sub-editor. So, and then famous last words, I says to him, I'll do it until you find somebody. And that's how I got sucked in. And that's what I want on my gravestone, just above, Wee Ginger Doug in big letters and Paul Kavanagh small letters underneath. I want I-corrected apostrophes for Scottish independence. Because someone has to. Bella Caledonia, please take note. They keep doing that IT apostrophe S, so it really bugs me. But anyway, I digress. So, I know it really gets my goat. It really gets my goat, that. But so I says to him, I'll correct your spelling, and that's how I got sucked in. And I would write articles about, about Catalan independence movement or whatever took my fancy when I lived in Spain. And that's how it started. And then we moved to Scotland in 2013. It was actually, by the way, it was because of the magazine that The Dog came about. I used to publish every month in the magazine. People ask me a lot, why is he called the Wee Ginger Duck when he's not very wee? But wee's a relative term, And when we got the Doug, we had another Doug who was like yon size. So he was the wee Doug. And we always had a big Doug and a wee Doug. And the wee Doug we'd had died. And Andy wanted another Doug. Now, at the time, he was ill, like I says, the early symptoms of vascular dementia. And the dog that we had, who was half German Shepherd and half horse, she was 15. She was always thick as shit, this Doug. Really, the most stupid animal ever. She was lovely, but a real moron. And Andy wanted another wee Doug, but I didn't, because I was going to have to look after both these. I was going to have to look after the Dougs, and I was going to have to look after him. So I didn't want it. But anyway, I got up one morning, and Andy says to me, he says, I had this weird dream last night. He says, I dreamt that we got this dog. He says, I've got a really clear picture in my head of what this dog looks like. He's got this broad head and a short muzzle and a ginger coat, with a wiry ginger coat and a curly tail and white socks on his feet. He says, we called it Ginger. He says, but what was really weird, he says, was that you were in Scotland with this dog. And everybody kept telling you that the dog was a lot bigger than they thought it was going to be. And people were talking about Scottish independence. Now this was back in 2009, there was no prospect of an independence referendum on the horizon. And I was like, aye, right, mad mental dream. And I finished my breakfast. And I went and I checked my emails. And lo and behold, I got an email from an animal rescue charity that had never been in contact with me before. They were based in Elche, the most southerly Catalan-speaking town. It was about 30 kilometres to the north of where we lived. And they said, these are 4 pictures of dogs we just picked up a couple of days ago. According to the blurb, Ginger had been picked up 2 days previously from an irrigation canal near Elche. He was in shocking condition. His ribs were sticking out, his spine was sticking out, he had 45 ticks on him. He'd obviously been abandoned and neglected for a very long time. And I looked at it and I looked at the picture and I thought, my God, that looks awful like the dog that Andy was just talking about. So I never said anything, I just pulled the picture up on the screen and I called him over and I pointed at the picture. And he goes, that's the dog! Where did you get that picture from? And he said it in a really accusing tone because he used to be a police and it never really leaves him. Where did you get that picture from? Does it belong to someone that we used to know in London and that's why I was thinking about it? And I told him what it was and he went, oh, that's a sign, it's a sign, we've got to get that dog. We've got to get that dog. So over here, you know, when you want to adopt a rescue dog, you've got to make an appointment, you've got to go and see them, you have to have a visit from the doggy social worker to make sure that you're a good parent, you know, and all that. You have to be approved. Over in Spain, it's like, you say, I'm interested in that dog, and they say, fine, come and pick the dog up. If you want to keep him, if not, bring it back. And that was it. So I phoned them up and I says, you know, I'm not doing the magazine anymore, but I'm interested in that particular dog. And they said, fine, come and pick the dog up, bring him back home, see how he gets on with the dog that you've got, and if you want to keep him, fine. If not, bring him back to us. So I drove up to Elche that afternoon, and the very first thing I said when I saw him was, he's an awful lot bigger than he looked in the photo. And I took him back into the car, and I brought him home, and the first thing Andy said when he saw him was, he's a lot bigger than I thought he was going to be. But that's how we got the wee ginger dog. Now, everything that Andy dreamt about has come true, except the independence bit. So now I know it's totally superstitious, I know it's really silly, but there's a part of me that can't help but believe, I maybe just want to believe it, that Scotland will become an independent country within the lifetime of that dog. And he's 11 now, but he's really, really healthy. So I think it's going to happen. Actually, he's now officially famous because, like Paul McCartney, he's now been subject of a death hoax. It was a friend of mine, Mark McLaughlin, who does a lot of stuff about the Constitution. He was giving a talk in Paisley a couple of weeks ago for Women for Independence there about the Constitution. And I went along, I left the dog at home, because I mean, it wasn't me that was doing the talk, I was just coming to listen to him. And Mark McNaught, I beg your pardon. And I got in there, and a woman came up to me and she says, I'm sorry about the dog. And I'm like, that's okay, I just left him on the sofa. And she looked horrified. And then I was like, but he's fine, he's just lying there, he's on the sofa, he's fine. And she went, I mean, my condolences. And then I realised that she thought I'd left a dead dog on my sofa. Because apparently there was a rumour circulating on Twitter and Facebook that the wee ginger duck had died. But what it was a wee ginger duck had sadly passed away, and some people saw it and got the wrong end of the stick. But 3 people came up to me that night going, I'm really sorry about your dog. But no, I'm pleased to report that, you know, reports of Ginger's death have been greatly exaggerated, just like Mark Twain. So I think he'll be with us for a while yet. And we're at a really interesting stage now in the independence campaign because we have a campaign that's mature. You know, even that's the first time I've ever described myself as mature, but there you go. But we have a campaign that's mature in the sense that we are all seasoned campaigners. We know how to run a campaign. And we're getting into a second independence referendum with the support of half the population. Now remember what it was like back in 2012 when we realised that there was going to be an independence referendum. Independence had the support of about 28-29% of the population. You know, and I think the greatest achievement of us, the campaign in 2014, was to normalise the idea of independence. We didn't just take the idea of independence and bring it into the mainstream of Scottish politics. We made it the single most important question around which everything else in Scottish politics revolves. Independence now is a mainstream idea, whether you support it or whether you don't. When I was young, which was such a long time ago, and I had hair, the only people in Glasgow that seemed to support Scottish independence were mad guys that wore kilts at weekends, and they had big beards, and they ran about the hills pretending they were Pictish warriors, you know, not people like me. But now, you know, it's a normal idea to want Scottish independence, and that's why I'm convinced, you know, that independence will happen, particularly when you look at the demographics of it. When you look at the most recent opinion poll, which was typical of opinion polls. And whenever you say this, actually, you always immediately get a 70-year-old person saying, but I've supported independence all my life. It's a fact that the older you are, the less likely you are to support independence, and the younger you are, the more likely you are to support independence. And when you get to the youngest cohort, you know, it's like 75% of the population. So it really is just a question of time about when independence is going to happen. There is always going to be an irreducible number of people in Scotland who will never ever support independence, whatever arguments we give to them. And those people largely, but not entirely, are amongst the oldest generation. One of them was my dad, unfortunately. My mum, on the other hand, is a big independence fan. My father, no. He's 80. He will never, ever change his mind. It doesn't matter what you say to him. If the Labour Party doesn't want it, neither does my dad. He is your archetypal West of Scotland Catholic. If you say, you know, if you cut him down the middle, it would say Labour all the way through him, like a stalk of rock. And the thing is, my dad wants a republic. He wants rid of Trident. He wants a break-up of the big Highland estates. He wants all these things that he will only ever get in an independent Scotland. And he voted no. And I asked him back in 2014, what did you vote no for? And he said, and I quote, because I don't want to be ruled by Presbyterians. And I'm like, oh, the name of fuck. It's not 1950, Dad. Nobody cares anymore. And then, of course, when Theresa May did her deal with the DUP last year, I was like, so Dad, so how's that? How's that not being ruled by Presbyterians working out for you? And my mum's like, stop it, just stop it, stop it. But the point is, you know, you'll never ever get through to him. There's certain people in this country we will never get through to. My dad, sadly, is one of them. But we don't need to get through to everybody. We only need to get through to 50% plus one. That's all we need. We only need a majority. And we're within spitting distance of that already. Because I think that we already have an effective majority for independence in this country, despite what the opinion polls say. The opinion polls don't include 16 and 17-year-olds. They may not include EU citizens who don't have the right to vote in UK national elections. And opinion polls largely standardise their polling panels on people who are eligible to vote in UK national elections. EU citizens will be able to vote in a Scottish independence referendum. 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in a Scottish independence referendum. Back in 2014, EU citizens largely voted no, because they were afraid of their status as EU citizens in independent Scotland. Now, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that EU citizens are changing their mind. In fact, I was talking to a Polish guy who lives in Dingwall when I was doing a talk up there a few months ago, and he was telling me that back in 2014, he was the only Polish person north of Inverness who voted yes. He says now, all the Polish people I know in the north of Scotland are going to vote yes, all of them, because of the EU thing, because of Brexit. But there has been a lot of churn in the figures. You know, people think, well, why don't we have a banged-on majority at the moment for Scottish independence? And the fact is that some people who voted yes in 2014 were what you might call soft yeses, you know, and they've kind of drifted away for one reason or another. So the key, but an awful lot of other people have come back on board because of it because of the Brexit thing. So in order to get a majority in the next independence referendum, who we need to target are those people who voted yes in 2014, but who, for one reason or another, have now drifted off. And getting them back on board is a much, much easier task than converting somebody who was a confirmed no voter to yes, because the people that we need to talk to have already voted yes. We need to get them back on board again. And if we can get those people back on board again, together with some studies that have been done by Commonweal, beg your pardon, seem to say that they are predominantly older women. Older women who supported independence in 2014 seem to have gone off the idea in quite large numbers, and those are some of the groups that we need to target. But if we can get all those people back on board again, we've already got a majority for independence in Scotland. And I'm convinced that once we have an actual campaign, an active up and running campaign, we will start to see the polls shift. It's not going to happen beforehand because most people don't live and breathe politics. They're not that interested in it. They resent being told that they need to think about something that hasn't happened yet. But once it's actually happened, once there's a campaign, people will have a reason to start to engage with the issues, and that's when we'll start to see the opinion polls shift, exactly as what happened back in between 2012 and 2014. And the difference is we don't have that far to go this time. We're already on the cusp of an independence majority in the opinion polls. We're already nearly there. We really don't have far to go. And unlike the No campaign, we do have an effective mass grassroots organisation that's able to talk to people on a one-to-one basis. Because all that the British nationalist parties could do, and I'm trying to stop talking about unionists, by the way, because I think that's unhelpful. Because it allows British nationalists, opponents of independence, to frame this as a debate between nationalism and non-nationalism. And that's not the case. The Scottish constitutional debate is not a debate between nationalists and non-nationalists. It's a debate between two different visions of what this country is. It's a debate between, if we have to be Scottish nationalists, then they have to be British nationalists, and we cannot allow them to escape the consequences of their own nationalism, because after all, the actual fascists are all on their side of the debate. The orange people, the extreme right, they're all on their side of the debate, not ours. The actual fascists, the actual extreme nationalists, that's all on the British nationalist side, and I'm really angry with the way that they try and make out that somehow that they're not nationalist. You know, because that's one of the central myths of British nationalism, is that British nationalism is better than other nationalisms because it's not nationalist at all. You know, and I think if we have to be nationalist, if we have to adopt and use that label, then they have to be British nationalists. Unfortunately, the only other equivalent is, I mean, when I'm talking in Spanish to people, I would never, ever describe myself as a nacionalista escocés, because the word nacionalista in Spanish refers to that kind of right-wing exclusionary nationalism. Pretty much exclusively, that's what the word means. The word for, you know, English language conflates two very different concepts under the label nationalism. There's that kind of right-wing exclusionary extreme patriotism that wants to aggrandise an existing country, and then there's the desire for independence for a country that doesn't already have it. And English, the English language, conflates those two different things, those two very different political animals, under the rubric nationalism. In Spanish, which is a much better language for talking about politics, they have two different words for those two different things. The first one, the right-wing one, is nacionalismo. Brexit is a nacionalista project. Scottish independence is independentismo. And if you support independence, you are an independentista. And that's how I always call myself when I'm talking about politics to my Spanish friends. Soy independentista escocés. I'm a Scottish independence supporter. Unfortunately, the exact equivalent of that in English is independentist. And when you tell people that's what you are, they just ask you how much you charge for orthodontic work. And it doesn't really get you very far. So we're stuck with the label nationalist. But like I said, if we have to be Scottish nationalists, they have to be British nationalists. So I'm trying to get away from talking about unionists, because the reality is we're not in a union. You know, if this really was a union, then Scotland would have a voice at the top table. We don't. We have Fluffy Mundell. We don't have a voice in Brexit. We're not even consulted in Brexit. In fact, my article for the National tomorrow is talking about that. That, you know, people say that one of the biggest myths of British nationalism is that the British state allows Scotland to punch above its weight. It's nonsense. The British state makes Scotland invisible. People in Spain never referred to Gordon Brown as a Scottish Prime Minister. They referred to him as an English Prime Minister. Prime Minister Inglés, that's what they called him. It makes Scotland invisible. No one ever said that the Soviet Union allowed Estonia to punch above its weight. We called them the Russians. That's what we called them. But now Estonia is an independent country, as a member of the European Union, and they have more influence over the shape and direction of Brexit than Scotland does. Because they've got a veto, they've got a place in the top table. We don't. We don't even get consulted about something that's going to affect us far more directly than it's going to affect Estonia. But Estonia, with its 1.2 million people, can influence the course of events in a way that Scotland can't, because Estonia is independent. And they became independent with only a fraction of the population and nothing remotely approaching the resources and capabilities that Scotland has. We could be a prosperous, stable, independent country. If you wanted to list the ingredients that you need for a prosperous, stable, independent nation, you would list the ingredients that Scotland has. And yet we're continually being told that we're too wee, we're too poor, we're too stupid. You know, and I never, to my dying day, will never understand why opponents of independence think that telling us that we're too poor, that, oh, you've got this massive deficit, you know. Why do you think that's an argument? Because basically what you're saying is that successive Westminster governments have taken what is a perfect recipe for a prosperous, stable, independent state and fucked it up royally. That's what you're saying. You're saying that we've been messed up by Westminster for hundreds of years, and because we've been messed up, we need to stay with the people doing the messing up. That's not an argument against independence. That's an argument for independence. That's an argument for saying that we should run away from these clouds as fast as our hairy little Caledonian legs can carry us. And that kind of brings me on to a second point. One of the things I didn't like, because I'm basically a cynical git, one of the things I wasn't really happy with in 2014 was that we were so concerned to mount a happy, clappy, positive campaign that we didn't actually talk about the downsides of remaining a part of the United Kingdom. And I think it would be remiss of us as we go into a second campaign, especially with a UK that's been defined by Brexit, not to talk about the downsides, the risks of remaining a part of the United Kingdom. Because make no mistake, the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Ian Duncan Smith and Boris Johnson are not taking the United Kingdom out of the European Union in order to convert the United Kingdom into a paradise of workers and social rights. They're doing it because they want to destroy our employment rights. They're doing it because they want to axe public services. That's why they're doing it. They want to turn the United Kingdom into a cut-rate version of the United States with worse food and worse weather. That's why they're doing it. If we stay a part of the United Kingdom, you know, it might be, oh, you'll have a pension if you're already a pensioner, but your grandchildren won't. If you remain a part of the United Kingdom, we won't have a national health service. If we remain a part of the United Kingdom, our public services are under threat like they've never been under threat before. Paradoxically, the only way to preserve the really good things that the British state created as part of the post-war settlement in the 1940s and 50s, the national health, universal education, decent public services, a social security system that acted as a safety net for all. The only way to preserve those things is by leaving the United Kingdom. Scottish independence is the only way to preserve the positive things of the British state. That's where we are now. Because those things are under threat like they never before, and they're under threat by the British state itself. It's the British state which is destroying the British state. I've always thought that. I've always thought that Scottish independence would come about because of the actions of Westminster. I've always believed that. And they've displayed that ever since 2014. You might think 2014, when 45% of the Scottish population said that they wanted independence, that would have been a kick up the arse for the Westminster establishment. That might have made them say, oh, we need to tober up here, we need to take these people seriously. But they never. They took that vote as being back to business as usual. You know, in Quebec, where they also had a very closely run independence referendum, after it, they changed the constitution to take account of some of the concerns of the Quebecois. Quebec got a huge range of new powers. The Canadian government went a long, long way in order to try and meet the concerns and demands of Quebec. We get the vow. That's what we got. We get told that the only way that you can remain a part of the EU is with a no vote. So we voted no. And then we voted to remain a part of the European Union in 2016 by a considerably larger margin than we voted to remain a part of the United Kingdom. And we're leaving anyway. You know, all the things, I've been recently trying to rack my brains, trying to think about any of the promises and commitments that were made in 2014 by the Better Together campaign that they've actually kept. And the only one I can think of is that Michelle Mone said that she would leave the country, which I think we should put down as a big plus in their favour. But that's it, you know. The money that we're told was going to be invested in Scottish renewable energies, that's gone. You know, the jobs that we're told were going to be safe, they've gone. You know, the 13 Type 26 frigates that were going to be built on the Clyde, that was reduced to 8, then it's reduced to 5, now it's 3. You know, we were told in no uncertain terms that Britain never, ever, ever gets Royal Navy ships built abroad, and now we find out that they're contracting to South Korea to build them there. You know, just one thing after another. None of the promises and commitments that they've told us back in 2014 have been kept. And that, I think, is one of the biggest strengths that we've got as we go into another campaign, because the British nationalists cannot make any new vow, they cannot make any new promises to the people of Scotland, because all we have to do is to turn around and say to them, but you said that the last time and it turned out to be a lie. I think it was Stephen Daisley, who said on Twitter recently that well, I don't do Twitter anymore, so you know I just go and look at what he says without logging in. But do you know, I have to apologise anyway. I went to school with Stephen Daisley. We went to the same school, 20 years apart, you know. But then you know, I also went to the same school as Pat Kane. So there you go. So 2 out of 3 is not bad. But anyway, Stephen Daisley said on Twitter recently that in an alternate universe, he said, the way that Brexit playing out is the way that independence would have played out. But no, actually, Stephen, in this universe, Brexit is how a no vote's playing out. That's how it's happening right now in this real world that we all really live in. That's what happened with a no vote. And that's the thing. The promises that were made in 2014 were and shall forever remain hypothetical. You know, you're not talking about the real world. I want to talk about the real world. I want to talk about what really happened. And the promises and commitments that were made to Scotland in 2014 can be tested against reality. And in every single instance, they're found to be lacking. And that's the biggest weakness that they've got. The biggest argument I think that they had in 2014 was why risk independence when you can have the safety, security and stability of the United Kingdom. Well, how's that working out for you all? There is no safety, security and stability anymore. So the choice that we have is a choice between an uncertain future where Scotland is in charge of driving the bus, or an uncertain future in which we're in the back of the bus that's been driven off a cliff, but it does have £350 million for the NHS written on the side of it to make you feel better, and you will have your blue passport. So, you know, swings and roundabouts. You won't have a job, you won't be able to go abroad, but you'll have a blue passport. But that's the choice that's facing us. You know, what is best for Scotland? Do we actually shape our own destiny? Or are we going to let other people do it for us? And like I said, the Tories are not embracing Brexit because they want to do ordinary working class people favours. They're doing it because they want to make money off our backs. They want to destroy our rights. They want to destroy our public services. That's the future that we have. And the only way that we can avoid that is with another independence referendum campaign. Now, I'm convinced, like I says, that we're going to win it. I'm convinced that, you know, there's things that we can learn from the last time that we did well, things that we didn't do so well. One of the things that we did really, really well the last time was the grassroots organisation, because it means that we can tailor the message of independence to individuals in a way that British nationalists can't. They've got the media, but all they can do is broadcast a one-size-fits-all message of scare. We can actually talk to individuals about their particular fears, their particular concerns, and approach individuals on a one-to-one basis. And that's how we took the message of independence and converted it from 28% of the population to 45%. We're now sitting at 48% or thereabouts, and we don't have far to go at all. And that's why the likes of Ruth Davidson, her mantra is Scotland doesn't want another referendum, because she's terrified of it, because she knows that when there is another referendum, she's going to lose it. Because make no mistake, if Ruth Davidson really believed that she was going to win another independence referendum by a handsome margin, she would be the first person to say, bring it on, let's have this now. The reason she doesn't want another independence referendum is because she knows she's going to lose it. And it's up to us to make sure that she does. And we will. So, I'm quite confident this time. I wasn't in 2014. In 2014, there was always a wee voice at the back of my head going, no, I don't think we can do this. Now, it was a weird time for me. I started doing the blog when Andy's dementia got quite advanced. I couldn't get out of the house. I was stuck indoors as a full-time carer. He passed away on the 3rd of September 2014, a week and a half before the referendum. So it was a weird time for me. And on the day of the actual vote, I went down to George Square, and there were some friends of mine there. And it was a brilliant atmosphere in George Square that day. People were really jazzed up and really happy. And I just had this terrible feeling of foreboding that we've not done this. And I don't know where it came from, but I just felt, no. And I didn't want to put people on a downer, so I went back to the flat where I was staying. And it was 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I sat down and I wrote a blog article called The Tide Goes Out, about, the tide comes in, the tide goes out, and it's up to us to keep this flame of hope alive in the storms and the gales that are going to hit us. And it was about losing the vote. And I wrote it, like I says, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon when most people still hadn't voted. But I just knew that we'd lost. I just knew it in my bones. And I put on the news, when the results programme after the polls closed, and I watched it with the sound off, because I couldn't bear to listen to the gloating and the triumphalism as Margaret Curran was being interviewed by Brian Taylor on BBC. And I just couldn't bear to listen to it. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, when it was obvious that we just didn't have the votes to do it, I published that blog article. And a lot of people have said to me since, to this day, it remains the most read piece I've ever put on the site. And a lot of people have told me, I'm really proud of the fact that they said they got a lot of strength and comfort from it, and what was a very difficult day for so many of us. And people say, you wrote something fine and uplifting for when Scotland voted no. And did you have anything prepared for if Scotland had voted yes? And I was like, I knew exactly what I was going to write if Scotland had voted yes. I had it all prepared in my head. I was just going to write, you fucking dancer, and get I'm trying to persuade Callum to put that on the front page of the paper, but somehow he doesn't seem so keen. But I'm convinced it's going to happen. We will be saying that. I will be saying that one day. So, but like I says, there's things that we did well, there's things that we didn't do so well. One of the things I didn't think we did so well back in 2014 was that we were afraid to talk about Scottish culture. And I think we should be proud of Scottish culture, we should be proud of our identity, we should be proud of who we are, because it's Scottish culture and history that has created this civic nationalism that we're all so proud of. The fact that Scottishness is a state of mind, that anybody can become Scottish. It doesn't matter where you were born, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's about where we're all going together. That's what Scottishness is all about. I met an American guy when I was over there a few years ago, and he came from, I think it was South Carolina or something like that. And he said to me, because my second name's Irish, obviously, and he asked me where all my family were from, and like half my family's Irish. And he said to me, oh, I'm more Scottish than you are, because all of his great-great-grandparents or whatever were Scottish. And I says to him, go on, Duke for chips, you muppet. And he didn't understand me, which I thought proved my point exactly. But the point is, Scottishness is, like I said, Scottishness is a state of mind, and it's Scotland's culture and history that has created that Scottish civic identity, that Scottish civic nationalism. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that, we should be proud of that. But the fact is, when you do start to talk about Scottish culture, you get torrents of abuse on social media. And I did these Gaelic maps, and I get a lot of abuse on social media. That's why I gave up on Twitter and I gave up on Facebook, because I just get all this abuse from people who are not nationalists because they're British nationalists. They've got their union flags, but they're not nationalists, they hate nationalism. And it was always worse on Tuesdays and Fridays, which is when the National publishes a push quote. They publish a couple of lines from the article that's going to be published the next day. And immediately my Twitter feed would be full of howling abuse from people who are not nationalists at all, outraged about an article that they've not actually read yet. But you get used to that, you get used to that. But anyway, I published on my blog that I was doing these Gaelic maps of Scotland, which has been a hobby of mine for years and years and years. I started to do it when I was in Spain. I studied Gaelic when I was a teenager, because I was found out when I was a kid that place names actually mean things, and this fascinated me to discover that place names actually have a meaning in Gaelic. And they used to speak that where I lived, in the east end of Glasgow in North Lanarkshire. Things like Auchenshoogle, it means the rye fields in Gaelic. And Brachny, where I was born and brought up, is the Heathery Hill. It's a Gaelic name. And this amazed me, and it sparked me off in a lifelong interest in language and linguistics. And I studied Gaelic, I did my Gaelic Learners O grade, I did my Gaelic Learners Higher. And then I went away to London, then I went away to Spain. And one day in Spain I realised I was forgetting all my Gaelic, and I thought, well, a way to get back into this, because I remember asking my mum when I was a kid, is there a Gaelic map so I can see what all these names are? And she laughed. A Gaelic map of Glasgow, don't be silly, no such thing. Anyway, I've always believed, and it's my motto for the Scottish independence movement, if you want something done, do it yourself. That's what my mammy's always told me. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to start researching Gaelic names and do this this Gaelic map that I've always wanted. So I started to do it, and it's published now, and I put a bit on the blog, and immediately I got this torrent of abuse from British nationalists who were outraged that I had the audacity to do Gaelic maps, like a Gaelic map of Glasgow. Tom Gallagher of Scotland and Union fame, he said that I was a Gaelic imperialist because I did a Gaelic map of Glasgow. He was so angry about it that I went and did a Gaelic map of Edinburgh just to piss him off. Which really any other reason. But it gets back to the point of what I was saying earlier about my dad. That there are certain people, and it doesn't matter what you say to them, you will never ever get through to them. And this particular woman contacted me with a Union flag in her avatar, and her opening gambit was, "How dare you waste my money?" She was obviously a follower of Jackson Carlaw, who believes that Gaelic road signs cause potholes. And it was like, "How dare you waste my money?" And I was like, "I beg your pardon?" She says, I'm fed up with my money, my taxpayers' money being wasted on nonsense like this. I was like, excuse me, this is my hobby. Nobody's paying me to do this. Certainly you're not. I says, I'm going to put my hand in my pocket to get these maps printed, and then if people want to buy them, they can put their hands in their pockets to buy them. I take it you won't be buying one. And she went, no, I certainly won't. I says, well, none of your money's been wasted. What are you talking about? And then she decided that what she was really angry about, because it wasn't costing her a penny, was that she was really angry that I shouldn't be doing Gaelic maps because I was imposing Gaelic on her. And I was like, how does that work? You're imposing these Gaelic names on me. I says, but you've already said that you're not going to buy the map, so you're not even going to look at it. I says, I lived in Spain, 15 years I lived in Spain. I've got this atlas that I bought when I lived over there. And did you know that according to this Spanish atlas that I've got, that we live in a country called Escocia, and it's got a capital city called Edimburgo? How dare they impose that on me? I says, that's exactly what you're talking about, don't talk nonsense. And then she decided that what she was really angry about was that I shouldn't be doing a Gaelic map of Glasgow because Gaelic has never been spoken in the Lowlands. And I'm like, okay, and your source for this information is? Or just everybody knows? Jackson Carlaw, presumably. Everybody knows. I said, well, I've been researching this for like decades, and I can cite you all these academic texts about place name studies and all sorts of things, go back to the 1920s, even further, and it proves that the Gaelic language was once the dominant or only language everywhere in mainland Scotland, north and west of a line drawn very approximately from Dumfries to Musselburgh. Everywhere north and west of that line, Gaelic was at one point the only or the dominant spoken language. And even outside that line, in the extreme southeast, you'll find Gaelic place names as well. I says Gaelic is found everywhere in Scotland, even in Edinburgh. 1/4 of the place names in Edinburgh are Gaelic place names. Gaelic was spoken natively in the Edinburgh area at one point. And then I says to her, she lived, according to her Twitter bio, she lived in Kirkintilloch, which in Gaelic is Caer Ceall Bullich, which means the fort at the end of the Green Hill. And And it says Kirkintillich, Caer Ciarntolich, fort at the end of the Green Hill. And just down the road for you, you've got Cumbernauld, Comer nan Alt, the meeting of the streams. Gaelic name. Just up for there, there's Dullator, Du, Litchard, the Black Slope, Gaelic name. Down the road for you there, just down the road from where you stay, Lenzie and Langy, the marshy place, Gaelic name. Just up the road for you there, you've got Torrance and Torran, the little tower, Gaelic name. So see if Gaelic's never been spoken in the Lowlands, where do all these names come from? And she said, ScotRail. That's when I blocked her. So, but the point is, you know, it doesn't matter what you say to certain people, you'll never, ever, ever get through to them. Never. Because they're not operating on the level of facts, they're operating on the level of emotion. And it's the same with campaigning for independence. For certain people, it doesn't matter what you say to them, like my dad, like that woman, you'll never ever get through to them. They're not open to persuasion. So what we have to do is to concentrate our efforts on the people who are open to persuasion, and there's plenty of them, because we don't need to win 100% of the population in order to secure Scottish independence. We just need to secure a majority, and that's within our grasp. We're almost there already. It's just one wee push and we're over the hill, and we're on our way to an independent state, and I'm convinced it's going to happen. Now, one of the things I think, particularly in this part of the world, that we need to be careful of is that we can't attach too many conditions to Scottish independence. And it's one of the, I mean, personally I identify as somebody on the left in politics, but I think it's one of the mistakes that a lot of people, particularly on the left, make, that they try and put too many conditions on independence. But the fact is, we have to get as many people as possible to support this. Decisions about what kind of country Scotland's going to be are decisions for Scotland to make once we've established the principle that Scotland is an independent country. I want a Scottish Republic. Not everybody wants that, you know. That's not for me to say that, oh, independence has to be conditional on a republic. That's something that we can only decide after we've established Scottish independence. And I believe that a Scottish Parliament is far more likely to give me a vote on that than Westminster, which never ever will. Equally, we can't say that we want Scottish independence because we're becoming independent so we can be a member of the European Union. What we have to do is to say, we're campaigning for Scottish independence because it's up to us as the people of Scotland to decide what sort of relationship that we want with Europe and the rest of the world. And that relationship needs to be negotiated by a Scottish government that's answerable to the people of Scotland and to no one else. Because fundamentally, the reason I want Scottish independence is because I don't trust politicians. Sorry, Anne. I don't trust politicians of any hue, and I believe that they need to be kept close to us so that their arses are within kicking distance of our feet. That's why we need Scottish independence. Because Westminster isn't accountable to the people of Scotland. The government of an independent Scotland would be. And that's why we need Scottish independence. I want Scottish independence because I want something done about the big Highland estates. I want Scottish independence because I want rid of the obscenity of Trident. I'm fed up, you know, 50 years nearly I've been campaigning against that ever since I was a kid, and it's still there. And the only way we'll ever get rid of it is with Scottish independence. I want Scottish independence because I want something done about the poverty and deprivation that blights this country. You know, that's when I became a supporter of independence. The very first time I ever went outside the United Kingdom, outside the British Isles, I was in the Netherlands, I was 18, I was in a coffee shop in Rotterdam, stoned out my face, as you do when you're an 18-year-old from the East End of Glasgow. And I met this Dutch guy, and I went to the park, and I was sitting there in this park, all mellow and at one with the universe, thinking, oh God, this is lovely. This is just so nice here. And you know, all these well-fed, well-dressed people were walking by, and everything, the houses and the shops and the buildings were all really well maintained. And then the Dutch guy got up to go away, and just as he was leaving, he said to me, you need to be careful, this is a really bad area. And that's when it struck me that Shettleson's not normal. You know? And I got angry about it, because I'd been brought up to think that that kind of poverty and deprivation was normal. And it's not. And I don't want future generations of Scottish kids being brought up to think that that kind of level of poverty and deprivation of one of the richest countries in the world is normal, because it's not bloody normal. But if we want to do something about it, we need to do it ourselves. So these are all my reasons why I personally want Scottish independence, you know, and I accept that other people have different visions. And we have to make sure that this campaign encompasses everybody's vision of an independent Scotland, because fundamentally independence is about one thing, it's about one thing only, it's about who gets to choose the course that Scotland takes, who gets to choose the path that Scotland treads. That's what independence is about. And I firmly believe that we're going to wake up one morning very soon and say we're going to take that path. Scotland will be an independent country. Now, up till very recently, they were all my reasons for wanting an independent Scotland, but I've now got a better reason. And it came to me when I was doing a talk in Forres about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And we were talking about reasons for wanting an independent Scotland, and the guy put his horn up. And he says, "See, when Scotland's independent," he says, "we'll have our own stamps." And I'm like, okay, it's not something I thought about, but if you know somebody who's a big stamp collector, that could be the clincher. And he went, no, he says, you don't understand. He says, "See, when Scotland's an independent country," he says, "see, we're going to have our own stamps. And see that Doug's going on a stamp." And that's now my reason, top reason for wanting Scottish independence. When Scotland's an independent country, that Doug's going on a stamp, and that means Ruth Davidson's going to have to lick my Doug's behind. Thank you all for listening.
Fantastic. I will just have a wee break then and come back in 15 minutes or something. All right, cool.
Better take a boot for a pee.
Yeah, I'll come back. Get some raffles. Is there still available? Hello there, how are you? Hi, how are you? Fine, thank you. Yes, he's good, isn't he? He's a very good speaker, isn't he? Very good. At least remember some of those arguments. I know. So much. It's a tablet. No, thank you. Did you get some albums? I just don't like tablet. I am Scottish, honest, but I just... Well, she had ear infections when she was little, and she hasn't had any since the consultant put her on to get Actimel, and she hasn't had any until now. Aye, please do, Stephen. I've already got tickets. I'm just standing chatting. There's still some balance on the last
Thank you. Much earlier. 5 strips. That's the way it's
Very well, thank you. And yourself? Really fine?
Scotland independent flag.
I remember them well. We've still already got our doctorate, so she'll manage to 20,000 no problem. I've stopped that. Now I'm a retired artist, I don't need the letters after my name anymore.
Your one's going like.
Really well. I'm just glad to see this man upright.
That's fine. What colour is it? That's the last bit.
No, I didn't expect to see you tonight. I thought you'd still be doing it. I'm glad you're here. You're such a good writer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Volunteer days like this. Absolutely. I had it on Saturday morning as well.
I wish I was just standing on some money. I know.
Are you needing a drink?
Aye.
You want me to do some more?
Is you part of the organising here, are you?
No, not at all.
Sorry?
Not at all, no.
So I'll just
Well, what is it you guessed about them all? Oh, see, alright, okay. Right, okay. Well, Joey will get changed to the bar, because I'm going to get my you know what, I'll do that. No, just feel it's there. I'll go and get the business different things because we're not really about crazy money, we're just more like getting people.
Doing well?
You set this thing up. Because they must be talking us to much things up. It's all person have marijuana on. Let somebody else do the job for us. So I'm glad that
But I'll tell you what, if you want, I can give you a presentation on the Constitution. And you can either have a 30-minute one or a 60-minute one. It's up to you. I would recommend a 30-minute one and then a question and answer session, because that's going down very well. We've done something like about 15 of them across the country. This is, you can do this pretty There's a thin one in down in the nearest one is in
September's an executive, that's a Graham Brown one.
It's a raffle.
There is a raffle.
Oh, there is? Are you waiting in the queue?
Well, I'm actually waiting to buy a book, but I don't know if they've got any raffle tickets left.
Because the other thing, part of the Constitution, if you want independence, you've got to control your money. Independence
else, and you come central, until I come along, and then we're being unlocked because SMT have not told them. No, that was true.
Alright. Okay. I'll have a go.
You remember Holy Greg? I think that's why you're what's inside it was a Holy Greg because he's putting up the whole views that the fucking government. Remember Holy Greg? You remember Holy Greg? Oh no, maybe you don't, but somebody does. No, sorry, maybe you don't, that's not peace, no, that's a pedophile.
It's really good. I like to there's always so much you can do. Especially when you do
Another chance to have recognized for another chance to these actually we're having a meeting we're actually setting up a meeting to discuss how to actually get more recognition because we need to do that. People need to understand that we have to control money as well as and then the benefits I'll leave these with you because you'll have other meetings as
this weekend coming, so it's all Saturday and Sunday. And then we've got Scottish week. And I like Scottish week.
Yeah, it's a fine dog.
That's fine, thank you. Right.
because we're coming to a fairly busy time and we're trying to balance a few things that we're trying to get started up and kicked off. Yes, she has. No, I managed that yesterday. I never actually typed I haven't been doing as much as I'd like to do. So, but definitely I tend to do it. Do you get how to take a selfie in this phone? That's a phone. Right. What if I do it as a photo with selfie? Thank you. Excuse me. Just very quickly, I've got your favourite MBBs that came out. And I think you do a really good job. No. Maybe that somebody brings that up later on, but just curious. Maybe, you know, just a wee bit
Well, you enjoyed your evening?
Oh yes, I enjoyed it. I very much. It's good. No stuff. We're on the right road. Personally, I'm just wishing that happened 30, 40 years ago when I was a local member. I never voted unions in my life, never. I stood 16 for SNP and mother and Wisher. And I came within 63 before voting for victory against the second top man, Bailey James Dixon and Wisher. And I moved from mother to Wisher, you know. Just in the family that was staying in Wisher. Just that area was all staunch Labour, like, you know. You could have put a dog or a donkey up in a bar or something. They voted for that. You know, it's incredible. That was one of the founder men of the resurrected branch. What did we put in joy. 6 councillors elected, 3, sorry. And the 6 candidates, I was one of the candidates. It was a right free to get in. Because 2 of them, after 2 years, 2 of them jumped the fence and joined the Labour Party, would you believe? That area, but now, the last 2 elections, the SNP captured the seat. Absolutely brilliant. It went back a lot of memories.
Well, I was born in the Brook, but I was brought up in the Aberdeen. Then I went to sea.
For the last 10 years, I was
What I found is when I was going to cross in Canada, America, the Scots were better off there than the worst country. And the culture was stronger too. What the hell's wrong with my country?
I was in the William Jones for 2 years, and I was got through the year. And I've been in America as well. My oldest son was an American tank corps, because he was all a woman and took him to America. Texas, Oklahoma, Denver, Colorado.
Most people do.
I came here to help. I'm sorry, promote his right now, right? I came here to help promote his right now.
To get the vote.
And also,
It would be handy, but it wouldn't be practical.
he got in contact with him.
Americans doing that campaign.
You can have a proxy. You still have to prove your vendor. Excuse me, hello? Otherwise, get too wide open. I'll get a bed. Because I can crossing the west coast of Canada. They'll stop from here. The first time I went to South America, to New Zealand, South Island there, their dialect was stronger than mine.
I was 33 years in SNP, and even up here, and I committed because SNP back in my 60s used to have training courses at a small town called Arba, it was called Kavanagh Tower, it was owned by the Church of Scotland. We used to go there and we used to, well, they didn't have any MPs then anyway, there were a few councils scattered about, and the first thing, other than trade union representatives, nearly everyone else that was on it, male and female, were lawyers. That's true, honestly, God. The only shame, we paid so much to us. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon was the fair, you know.
Here's a book, right? I'll give you a book, right? Come up here. Plus it's boards, right? And here's a couple of leaves with them. Things going on.
To be honest, I've never been a member of the SNP. I feel we've lost contact with the grassroots, the leadership.
But see what happened here. It's elected actually. Look at that. Salmon's from very ignorant man. I know he's interested in that. I see a former MP here.
He was one of the founders of Make Losses Company, along with Annie McCormick and MI6. Chris Coverdale, it's a legal expert in law. Quick rundown. Roughly about 5 years ago, the very circumstance. I phoned up Chris Coverdale. Hey, what's happening? He said, wait till Tuesday, we're having a meeting. While I'm on a phone, my friend next to me. Alright, I've got
when Salmon was making last year in Sharp money, my group actually gave him a fully worked up monetary policy and fiscal policy based on the Scottish pound and the Scottish central bank. What they're talking about now, we told Salmon the full details for it, and he wouldn't even know.
I wrote 2 letters to him myself. The letter was no, it was finally the best. Immigration. Because I got something through work here. I was one of them maternity. I got and Drake, so just didn't even know. And I picked up a picture. And I mentioned that. Immigration has got the control. They did the one in the NHS. Because the NHS all over the UK, before the foreigners all left, within 24 hours.
People can come in with a skill and earn the keep, then let them be. But you got one of my leaflets with the Constitution. Well, when you get time to look at the Constitution itself, it actually goes into details about citizenship.
Well, Who the son is ladies play? Who the son is aye, well. Nice to meet you. Balaclava, the Royal Hotel, Chapel, the Tulish Club.
Just doing this to get rid of
Yeah, but I thought when he was up on the road, it was a rainy day. Oh God, it was awful, wasn't it? The wheel fell up and it was laughing at me. I might tell you that you can't handle it like much. Why would he keep track?
Oh, that's right, yeah. Oh, I remember that. Really good job.
Is that Graham? Jason's there, as you know, Jason's there, it's very hard, you know, I think I've had more, but I don't know.
You're sure you could have written myself? You could give them dogs and
Just double it, put them back in.
okay.
So we'll see, I'll head in.
Aye, well, we'll arrange something then for meeting up. What's best for you? Probably midweek, is that? Or... Aye.
It doesn't make much difference at all. It's basically when you can get the accommodation, when you get
Well,
the
have it in here again. You can give us this for free. Aye. I'm lucky. I've got the Albert Hotel where I do the meetings. It's free. I can get this free as well.
You're doing a good job anyway.
So this is alright.
Okay, we'll stay in touch.
Okay, cool.
Alan, I think you should try to call for national in Dora, your Dora. Alan's going wrong. Callum's like I'm totally bewildered.
Right, shall we start then? Yeah, we're ready to do that? Right, I think we're just about to start, but we'll have some questions in a wee minute, but I think we're going to do the raffle first. That's right. So, am I doing this? Am I doing the raffle? Do you want to do the raffle? Right, okay, well I'll do it then, why don't I? Yeah. So what have we got first?
First prize is a bottle of Frizzante and a London Calling DVD.
A bottle of Frizzante and a London Calling DVD. Now stars Paul, of course, London Calling, so this is the reason why Paul doesn't get invited to the BBC. Or one of the reasons. And it's
one of the many reasons. It's 445 blue. 445 blue. See, the first time I did this, right, I went to one of these talks, and I have never ever been to an independence thing that didn't have a raffle. So to show goodwilling, I bought some raffle tickets. And then they says, "Oh, can you pick the tickets?" So I picked the tickets and I fucking won. So I don't buy tickets anymore.
So has nobody got blue 455? 445. 445.
Try another again. That's no green. Is that green?
Is that green? That's blue, isn't it? No? Kind of light blue? No, there's two. There's green.
No, it's blue.
That's blue. It's definitely blue. Yeah. Blue 445. Right, here we go. They are quite similar, aren't they?
Green 205.
Green 205.
Green 205. Oh. Great day. Hey!
Hey! Fantastic. Here we are. Here we go.
I saw the maps going.
I was good.
Well done. West to Carryham.
Aye.
Right, next number's coming out. Right, put one back. Right. I got like here. I know. Me too. Right, it's a pink one.
709.
Pink 709.
Pink 709. Yeah, there we are. Fantastic. We don't know what they're winning.
I don't know, I'm just grabbing the first
Right.
thing.
A couple of balls.
Oh, you got it.
One ball.
Get a DVD as well.
I don't need any more.
And the DVD. Fantastic. Right, this one
Pink
is
670.
Pink 670. Oh, there we are. They're sitting suspiciously close together.
Blue 214.
Blue 214.
Oh, right now.
Right, next prize.
Bottle of gin, the DVD this time.
A bottle of gin and a DVD. Prices are getting better. Not that they were, no. They've all been good, you know, but they're getting better, that's what I'm saying. And the number is?
693 pink.
693 pink. Oh, come on.
That's it, cheap. It's fixed. It's definitely fixed.
Right. Give it a good shuffle. What's next?
Chocolates.
Chocolates in the DVD. Pink 744, was that? Pink 744. Anybody? Pink 744? No, last chance.
No, right, try again.
Give us another one.
Just like the other one. Give us another one, dude.
Don't give up your day.
No.
Green 468. Green 468. Anybody?
Even the dogs.
Who's in charge of the apples?
468.
Phantom ticket.
Oh, it looks green. Oh, there we are. Green 468. Fantastic. That's the second one.
They're on that table there. I'm just
I know, there's a kind of cabal here of winners.
Next draw's for some sort of IPA. I can't read it. It's in some
So we got another beer and a
some
DVD.
sort of pale ale and a DVD.
490 blue.
490 blue. Oh no, come on, dude, you can't even. Oh dear.
Next one's State of Crisis. State of Crisis. DVD.
It's green 274.
Green 274.
there we go.
Ah, from another area of the room. Fantastic.
DVD.
Right, and can you, if you could pick our next one, that would be fantastic.
Right, I'll surface your number. Right, green 51. Is that good?
Green 51.
Oh, somebody here early.
Great, that's another one from that table. This is like the Leave campaign.
Oh, I should have picked my five.
It's a big table. You're right. Let's push two together. Right, a bottle of Prosecco and a DVD next. And the number is?
Green 177.
Green 177.
Just give it to me.
Green 177.
No.
Anybody? Green 177? Last chance, green 177. Right, we'll need to pick another one, I think.
Green 392.
Green 392. Hey! There we are, fantastic. Well done. And what have we got next? So it's another book.
State of Emergency.
State of Emergency.
Alright, I need to win first.
He needs to win the
Blue
one.
481.
Buy it.
Blue 481. Blue 481. Yeah, out the back, there we are. Fantastic. Last few. Another box of chocolates and the London Calling DVD. And the number is Green 88. Green 88.
You missed the gin. What were you
Oh,
doing?
we got somebody right at the back there. There they are. Fantastic. Last DVD and another beer.
Gnarly Fox Heatherwood craft beer.
Don't forget about
Fantastic.
those ones. Don't forget about those ones.
Well, they're no part of it as well, are they?
As far as, well, the bottle of Casillero Del Diablo that I brought is sitting there.
Is that one?
No, the white one.
I want the red one.
Green 224. Green 224. Green 224. No, might need another one, I think.
Okay. Awesome.
See if it's my number. I've only bought one, it'll be alright.
Blue 450. Blue 450.
Oh, it could be me.
There we are. Right, the lucky table, fantastic. Right, let's just do the next one here. So I think we've already got enough copies of that. Brilliant. What's next?
Right, green 355.
Green 355. Bottle of wine. Green 355.
Samosas and...
Anybody? Green? There we are, right up the back.
And then the next one's a bottle of Jeepers.
Okay.
And the next one, I think the final one maybe, is it?
Next one. So, green 446.
Green 446. Hey, there we are. Fantastic.
Right, there's some other bottles down here on the stage, apparently.
Oh, right.
Right, so something in a bag and I didn't know what
Right,
it is.
this was a mystery bottle. We've got a few more to give out here. Right, the mystery bottle, it goes to Green 319. Green 319. Anybody got Green 319? Green 319. Last chance. Right, let's go again.
Fancy bottle in a bag, you know. What in this
No,
one?
this one's exciting. Right, Green 432. Green 432. 432 green.
Oh, God, there's one.
Hey, there we are.
Hey!
And the next one's another bottle of wine.
Bottle of white next.
Right. Green 357.
Green 357. Right up the back.
The back.
Okay, fantastic.
Green 16.
Green 16. There we are. Fantastic. No, I don't want it from there yet. What are we doing?
What with the nice looking bottle of red?
That does look nice.
It does. It's got a fancy bit of metal around it.
Don't know anything about wine, but the
Better than my one.
Blue 193.
Blue 193.
Right, and then one final bottle of beer.
One final bottle of beer. We need one more number out.
Here we are.
Right, and the final number.
Final green 208.
Green 208. Green 208.
Hey!
Fantastic. There we are. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. I think everyone got something, which is fantastic. Right. Okay. So I think we'll just get started again then. So basically, the floor is yours to ask any questions that you have. Paul can answer. I've done about 40 of these with Paul now. Nothing stops him. He gives an answer to everything.
He's heard all my jokes before. Right?
I know, I've heard those jokes, right? Cool. And if you want to ask me anything about the paper, you know, circulation, advertising, anything like that, feel free to go ahead. We can talk about that as well. Right. So, yes.
Sometimes when I get a new one, he goes, "Oh, you had a new joke."
So, referendum or just sod it, UDI?
For you?
Right, referendum or sod it, UDI. He says, well, I think UDIs would be a disaster, frankly, because nobody is going to recognise it, because independence and sovereignty, it's all about people recognising it. And the only way that we can do it is if we have a mandate for it. And a mandate means a vote of the Scottish people in order to say we want independence. But there's two ways that we can go about that. We can either say, you see, the thing is, what I'm afraid of is if we just said, right, okay, bugger it, we're just going for UDI, there's going to be an awful lot of people in this country who'd be very angry about it and who are liable to get violent, you know. And one of the really impressive characteristics of the Scottish independence movement today has been that it's been non-violent. You know, in normal countries, most countries around the world, when they have debates about independence, that's a debate that's conducted with bullets and bombs. and states of emergency and internment camps. And in Scotland, we had an independence referendum in 2014, and the only casualty was Jim Murphy's shirt. You know, and that is an immense testament. See, when Scotland were really good at beating themselves up about all the things we're shite at, and there's a lot of things we're shite at, like just look at the football team for a start. But there's some things that we're really good at in this country, and we are really good at democracy in Scotland. You know, when I read the Spanish press, and constantly in the Spanish and the Catalan press I read as well, and they are constantly holding Scotland up as a model for how these things should be conducted. You know, and that's not something that we should let go of lightly. And declaring UDI would mean letting go of that, because it would risk violence. There would be a lot of people who would justifiably say, I'm not going to accept an independent Scotland because nobody asked me. And they would have reason to do that. The only way that we can have Scottish independence is with a vote of the Scottish people to say we want independence. And we can either do that through a referendum, and despite what Westminster says and what you see in the British nationalist press, there is absolutely no reason why Holyrood cannot have a consultative referendum. And as we saw with the EU referendum, which was a consultative referendum, you know, it might not be legally binding, it might not have any legal force, but once it's taken place and a result has been produced, it takes on a political imperative and it can't be ignored. And politics trumps law every single day of the week, all the time. So we can either have a consultative referendum with the Scottish Parliament, which has not been negotiated with Westminster. We can either say to Westminster, look, we're having a referendum anyway, so you may as well agree to it and grant a Section 30 order, do it that way. Or failing that, instead of having the next set of elections for the Scottish Parliament in 2021, we just say, right, we're not going to the Scottish people to ask for a mandate for an independence referendum, we're going to the Scottish people to ask for a mandate for independence. And if we have a majority in the Scottish Parliament for independence, that's your mandate. But whatever way we do it, we need to have a popular vote of the Scottish people, because when Scotland becomes an independent country, you know, the whole point of this is that we are saying that we want to be an independent country because it's the people in this country that are the sovereign body, and it's the people in this country that get to choose the path that this country takes. And we can't start off on that journey without the people's consent, without the people saying, yes, we are the sovereign body in this land, because that breaches the very foundation principles of the entire Scottish independence movement. So I'm strongly opposed to notions of UDI. We have to have a vote, but we can have a vote, we will have a vote, and we will win it.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I take you back to 2014, the referendum? There were things cut in Canberra, like yes votes going on to the no votes pile. They opened up ballot boxes to see how the referendum was going. And also, MI5 said Scotland will never get their independence.
Well, okay, but I've heard this argument before, right? And I was at a meeting in Glasgow a wee while ago, and it was this mad mental bastard from the Scottish Resistance. And he was going on and on and on about MI5, and they'll steal it from us, and they'll never ever allow Scotland to become independent, they'll steal this referendum the way they stole the last one. And I'm like, well, what are you doing here then? Go home. Because if you sincerely believe that the last independence, that we won the last independence referendum, but the result was stolen from us, and that they will do that again at the next independence referendum, then what is the point in any of us being here? The way to guarantee, the way to make sure that there's no irregularities in the vote is to make sure that we have as many people voting yes as possible. Because it's not very easy to influence the outcome of a vote. If, say, you've got 60% of the people voting yes, that's an awful lot of votes you've got to falsify, and that leaves a big trail in order to screw the result your way. But if the vote is like 50.5% versus 49.5%, that's a lot easier to pockle it, because you don't need to falsify so many votes. The guarantee that we have of a fair referendum, of making sure that we get the right result, is to make sure that every single person that's going to vote yes turns out and votes yes, and we have as large a majority as possible. But there's no traction in it, and this is the other thing. for better or worse, we live in a country where people have faith in the democratic system and in democratic institutions. If we lived in a country like, for example, Egypt or Russia, where there is a long and consistent history of electoral fraud, we might be able to run with that argument and persuade people, you know, that all were pockled, there was irregularities in the vote. But we don't live in that kind of country, we live in Scotland. And when we start going on about irregularities in the vote, it just makes us come across as bad losers, and that's a bad look. That doesn't attract people to our side. It makes us come across as mad conspiracy theorists, you know. The way to guarantee that we're going to get the right result is to make sure that we maximise the vote for Scottish independence, and we get every single person out that's going to vote yes, and get them to the polls and get them to vote yes. That's how we do it.
Yes.
You say that again, sorry.
Over 65 that don't vote yes.
Uh-huh.
We were brought up being fed in history, especially from historical English.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
English point of view, or history and everything in our schooling.
Uh-huh.
So the over 65, this is what they got every day when they
Yes.
went to school. So how are they supposed to change their minds if they're decades and decades of being inculcated with these ideas from the English point of view?
Right. How do we change?
You've got to speak proper
Uh-huh.
and cut your language to go and speak like this or you get struck. That sort of thing. That's what I'm saying.
Basically, how do we cure the cringe, really? But, aye. But you're talking about older voters, people over 65, and how do we get through to them, you know, this positive message when they're being brought up with, you know, an Anglo-centric view of the world for decades and decades and decades. It's very difficult, to be honest with you, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, as I pointed out earlier, you know, the older you are, the more likely you are to oppose independence, and the younger you are, the more likely you are to support independence. We are never, ever going to get through to everybody. People like my dad, who's 80, is a lost cause, and I wouldn't waste my breath trying to convert him to independence, because it doesn't matter what I say to him, it doesn't matter what arguments I give him, it doesn't matter what information I give him, he's never, ever going to change his mind. And the key to successful campaigning is to identify those people that you can get through to and those people that you can't get through to, and don't waste your time on them. Because they're just energy vampires, people like that. They just suck up your energy, they suck up your enthusiasm, and you just leave feeling deflated and defeated. And that's not going to help you in the campaign.
But we were still brought up.
Aye.
The primary school, the secondary school, to where we are now, with a different sort of culture which was not our own.
Uh-huh.
So if you go no, which go to the and you got to come like Poland and Damascus or oh sorry, I was wrong at the time and your mom was wrong, your grandma was wrong.
Well, like I said,
That's your problem.
I know. We're going to, like I said, we're never going to get through to everybody. You know, we will not get through to everybody. There is no election, no vote ever in the world outside of places like communist Albania that gets 99% of the vote. And we will never get through. There are certain people we will never get through to, but there are people that are open to persuasion. And that's what we need to do. We need to concentrate on the people who are open to persuasion, and the people whose minds are closed. There's no point. There is no point. Because remember, we don't need to get 100% of the vote. We need a majority. We don't need everybody. We just need most people. You know, and it's better to concentrate our resources where it's going to make a difference. If you're concentrating your resources where it's not going to do it, it's not going to have any effect, you're wasting your time. Now, there are older people, there's plenty of older people in this room who are convinced about the cause of independence. And if you want to reach out to older people, if you want to reach out to any particular group in society, the best way to do that is to have other members of that group doing the persuasion. You know, so people like, for example, Pensioners for Yes. They're the ideal people to speak to older people rather than younger folk, you know. And that's one of the things that I thought was really valuable back in 2014, was the number of different interest groups that there were with their own yes campaigns. So there was NHS for yes, there was lesbian and gays for yes, there was even model train enthusiasts for yes, of which I was a proud member. So,
it was just you, was it?
no, there was 4 of us actually, there was 4 of us, but there you go. But we were there, at that point. I had a model train with a salt iron on it. So anyway, but the point is that those are the best people to reach out to any given group in society, is people who are in that group. It's like that Polish guy I was talking about. The best people to speak to Polish members of the Polish community in Scotland are other members of the Polish community. The best people to speak to members, you know, older people in Scotland are other older people, because they've had the same life experiences, they've had the same history, they know how to reach to them in ways that younger people from different generations can't. But having said that, there's always going to be a number of people that we will never ever get through to. And we just have to recognise that and move on and concentrate our resources where it's going to be productive. Do you want to use that?
I've got a question for each of you, if that's all right. Right, I'll start with you, Paul, because it follows on from what you just said. You said there are people like your dad who are never going to be persuaded, so don't waste your time. And then you said the best person to explain someone from a particular demographic is somebody else from that demographic. And I agree with you, and I keep saying to people, we don't have to persuade everybody, we don't have to persuade everybody, but how do you know who are the persuadable ones? Because I've witnessed some incredible transformations over the years from people that the way you describe your dad, who've changed their minds, and then they've been able to so eloquently tell you why they've changed their minds. So how do you know who to give up on? And the other thing I want to say to you about you saying particular demographics will respond better, I think sometimes the worst person to try and persuade a family member is another family member.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
Because there's no way in the world, when you're getting frustrated with your dad, there's no way that you're speaking to your dad in the way that you would speak to a stranger, that you're gently trying to cajole into independence. You're going to get angrier with your family members, and then they're going to dig their heels in and not want to vote yes just to spite you. So I would say your dad is not a lost cause. Where does your dad live? Where does he live? Oh, I'll meet him in November. I'm going to talk to your dad. Right. But my question, if I have to... my question, not that I'm your dad's demographic, obviously. Oh, do it.
I'm McLaughlin talking to my dad.
The question for you though is, how do you know when somebody, how do you assess when somebody is somebody that you're just not going to bother with because they're not persuadable? Can I ask, just answer that briefly. Somebody, it's like you were saying, I will never in a million years get through to my dad. Somebody else might. So you might, good luck, but go for it. But the point is that recognising your own personal limitations is what that's about. You know, I know when I'm wasting my time with a particular individual. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a lost cause with somebody else. You know, so I'm not going to waste time with my dad because I know that I will never get through to them. If you want to try, you're welcome. And he will probably listen to you far more respectfully than he would ever listen to me, because I'm just his boy and I talk shite, you know, and I've been talking shite ever since I was a kid, because I'm still a wee boy as far as my dad's concerned, you know. So other people might, you know, it's like that the lady was saying, there are some people that you know, that you find that you might not be able to get through to. Other people might be able to get through to them, because every relationship is unique. But that's the great advantage of a grassroots movement, because this is a movement that we conduct with a series of one-to-one, face-to-face conversations, and every single one of those relationships is unique. You know, and one person might not be able to get through to somebody, but someone else might. But equally, because you have that personal knowledge of individuals, then you're able to recognise when you're wasting your time and when you're not. So. But there's no hard and fast rule. Sorry. I am going to ask you a question, but just on that also I would add that
every time you have a conversation with somebody about this, you don't have to convert them. You might just nudge them along a wee bit, and then somebody else says something, or they read something that nudges them along another wee bit. Right, so my question about the National is this. I'm assuming everybody in this room, like me, loves the National, because it's the first time we've ever had a daily newspaper, daily national newspaper, that says, reflects what we believe. How do you make it more appealing to people who don't currently support independence? Because, or is that not the point of it? Is it the point, or is it going to be the point of it? But how do you do it? Because I think that's a huge challenge. Because I think currently the people that buy it are us, and we're already saying yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's kind of several things there. For me, I guess the most important thing is just having a newspaper out there that supports independence and is successful, normalises the concept for everything else and all the rest of the media, and it makes it acceptable to have a newspaper that supports independence. I think for us, and we've been kind of having a few discussions around this recently, I think for us, the priority for us over the first 3 years or whatever of our existence was to win over you guys. Because people, and I myself, were very, very distrustful of the media, and I think our job, first of all, was to win over the Yes movement and to prove to them that we were for real and that we really did back independence. So I take your point. I think from now on, and I think from particularly from the start of the campaign, there might be a bit of slight repositioning that we need to do in order to get no voters in the door or to the National to a certain extent. And I think that's something that we're definitely looking at. It was interesting when we talked about our kind of 3rd anniversary at the end of last year, and I kind of wrote a blog poster, put it on Wings and We Ginger Doug and all that kind of thing. I was interested that a lot of the feedback was that people didn't like the strapline on the front that says this is the newspaper that supports an independent Scotland, because they felt it was off-putting, and they would rather that we had something a bit more neutral, because they wanted no voters to not be put off by that, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I think actually what that showed is how far we've come in 3 years, that people trusted us to be suggesting that, because if we'd done something like that before, people would have said, oh, you're not serious about it. So I'm interested, I guess, in people's thoughts on that. What is the... How do you feel about the kind of the line on the front?
I think a lot of people see the headline in National and think, I know what that's going to say, I don't agree with it, I'm not buying it.
You've done it. You don't need that.
Should we change it?
I think you should keep it clean, and also your front pages are so impactful.
I think it was important to set a stall out at the start, you know, definitely. But one of the other things, and I can't remember, talking to somebody about this during the break, is we can't get advertisers to go into the National. And it's a huge, huge problem, because advertising is a massive part of, and it's, in fact, it's the business model for some newspapers, the Metro, you know, I mean, the Metro purely run on advertising, but we get from advertisers and from businesses that they don't want to be associated with a newspaper that supports independence, which to me is just phenomenal. I mean, how is that the case? But they're happy to be in the Express, or they're happy to be in the Mail when they're running their kind of anti-migrant stuff or whatever, but they won't be associated with a newspaper that supports independence. So there's lots of kind of issues around this, I think, and about our positioning and how we kind of, because we need to attract businesses and we need to attract advertising at the same time as attracting readers.
It's kind of a Rangers-Celtic thing. You don't want to be seen to be supporting Rangers or Celtic, because you could lose half your clientele.
The newspaper for party person.
You know what I mean? You don't want to...
No, I know what you mean.
You could lose.
Well, there's several things that we get from businesses. Obviously, there's a few different. I mean, you know, the guy, the kind of hardcore unionist car dealer, Rangers man from Glasgow, is never going to advertise in the National. Do you know what I mean? There's a lost cause. But there are businesses who are spooked. There are businesses who just don't quite want to. I mean, there's no risk in putting their bit. no unionist is going to boycott business because they've taken out a half-page advert in the National. I mean, it's ludicrous.
My wife's
But this
never
is the
bought
kind
a
of
Turkish tea cake in the last 3 years.
She never will. No tea cakes for 3 years.
No.
That's a sacrifice.
You know, but I think so you know, I've kind of answered that in a bit of a roundabout way, but there's a conversation to be had about that and about attracting no voters. But one of the most important things for the National to do is to give independence people and give yes voters the arguments that they need and to get these stories out there. But even as I said earlier, a Facebook, we have the kind of, they call it interaction rate. We've got the highest interaction rate of any news media site, including the BBC, including the Record, all these kind of places, than anybody else. What's that?
Keith Howell, for instance.
Keith Howell. Is he one of the Scotland and Union letter writers? No, we don't have. We banned them from our paper. No, he's not. Well, I'll be having words because we've got a list of names who aren't allowed in the National, and he's certainly one of them. I don't know who he is, by the way, but
they should be allowed.
Yeah, what's that? I don't know.
The Scotsman, they see their website is unusable. It's just not. I mean, I'm not even talking about its politics. I'm just talking about you immediately you have these videos that automatically load, and it's a mess. The website is an utter mess.
So is there any prospect that before the next referendum, is there any prospect that before the next referendum you might find another newspaper coming over to the yes side? And if so, who would it be?
Well, it's hard to say really. I mean, I don't think any of the kind of, Herald, Scotsman, these kind of papers would ever make the leap. I think the Sun will go, if it looks like we're winning comfortably, I think they'll jump ship. And
the Sun was going to do it.
I think they were on the edge of it.
No, I know they were because they did a story about you and Andy.
Yeah.
Because my late partner, who died just before the independence vote in 2003, was a former Royal Marine. He fought in 2 wars for Britain. He was English, and then he was in the Metropolitan Police for 25 years. He took part in the Balkan Street Siege and all this. And he was the least likely person you might imagine to be an independence supporter. And the very last thing he did was to put his name to his postal vote for independence just a couple of days before he died. And a reporter from the Sun, and I really agonised about whether or not I should do it, but some friends said, no, do it. And the reporter from the Sun came and said that they wanted to do a story about Andy, about this English hero who was voting for Scottish independence, right? And then they didn't do it. They didn't do it at the end because they decided that they weren't going to support independence. So they were definitely considering it, but I think it was in the last minute they decided that.
Yeah, and I suppose the other ones, I don't really know the kind of situation in the North East as well as I do the other papers. The other ones are Record, I suppose, who have been kind of shifting and edging. They're certainly not where they were, put it that way. Whether they'll take the leap or not. But I can't see them doing another vow, for example. I don't know who would do it. There's nobody allowed to do it. But exactly.
What could they say?
So, but I've always said, the best, and this is true. The best way to convince or to persuade or inspire these newspapers to do something like that is to make a huge success of the National. And then, because if we can be ticking up while all the other ones are ticking down, then the people will see that as something positive and might be inspired to make the change themselves because money talks. Yeah, sorry, you've had a hand up the whole time. So
to get back to the first question, what happens if Holyrood calls a referendum and the Unionists and the British Nationalists boycott it? What do you do then?
I mean, I'll let you answer this, but it's getting likely.
Well, the thing is that I think that the British nationalist parties in this country have been paying as much attention to Catalonia as we have. And what they won't do is do what Marianne Rajoy did and send in the police to try and block a referendum, a consultative referendum that's given the Scottish Parliament brings forward. But I do think it's quite likely that they would boycott it. And in Catalonia, they could get away with that strategy because they do have a media which says, you know, it's balanced media, and it would explain to people the importance of voting, and this is why you need to vote. And they managed to get a respectable turnout. We don't have that kind of media in Scotland. All we're going to hear, if the Scottish Parliament calls a vote, Westminster says we don't authorise it, the British Nationalist Party say we're going to boycott it, all we will hear on the BBC is, well, even if you do support independence, there's no point in voting. And we will have that message drummed into you to try and minimise the vote. So I really think that the way to go is to have a plebiscite election for the Scottish Parliament. I really think that's the way to go. Now, that's going to take rather more in the way of cooperation between the SNP, the Greens and the wider independence movement than we've seen to date, but it's certainly possible. And what that would mean is that in 2021, instead of having
Wee bald guy.
Just a wee bald guy.
Wee bald guy, that must be me. Instead of having a vote for a referendum in 2021, instead of having saying that we want a mandate, probably aye. If we were having a referendum, a mandate for a referendum, what would we would go to the Scottish people to say this is a mandate for independence. Now the thing about a plebiscite election for the Scottish Parliament is that the British nationalist parties can't boycott it, because if they do boycott it, it means that they are surrendering 100% complete control of the Scottish Parliament to pro-independence parties for 5 years. They're not going to do that. They will participate in it, and Westminster can't say, no, you're not allowed to have that vote. They've got to have that vote. So I think that's the way to get around that. It can be done. So, and that is what Nicola Sturgeon needs to be saying to Theresa May, and I'm sure she will. That's what Nicola Sturgeon needs to be saying to Theresa May when she's saying to her, we want a Section 30 order, because that's what she should be saying to her, that's what we are going to do if you don't authorise it. And that means that we will be having a legally recognised vote that the British nationalist parties have to participate in, against a background of us saying, you don't want Scotland to have a vote, you don't want Scotland to have a voice, that's a bad, bad look for you. So I think that they will finally agree to a Section 30 order, and that's the stick that Nicola Sturgeon needs to wield with Theresa May.
How are we doing for time? I think we may take that.
No, we've got about 10 minutes or something, and then
a couple of questions. I
I'll round up and say thank you.
When will she do that?
I have no idea. I wish I knew, but the more I'd like her to do it, but
I don't think even they know, to be honest. To be
I think they're waiting to see how Brexit pans out.
You know, things have changed so much in the past week, let alone. I mean, see where we were with the Chequers plan, and it looked all agreed, and all the cabinet ministers, and then here we are, you know, maybe 10 days later, and it's all fallen apart, and it's all changed again. So it really is hard to say when, and it's hard. You need to be presenting a vision of two visions. One, you know, this is the nightmare that you're left with if you stay, and here's the optimistic future that you could have outside the UK. But it's hard to say. You know, it's all up in the air at the minute, which makes that difficult. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, what about these reports that if Brexit goes pear-shaped and they have this no deal, that the British government will declare a state of emergency and strip the powers of Holyrood? And if that happens, it's going to happen. But it's going to happen pretty quickly. And if it does, where does the Scottish Parliament stand if Holyrood have already had their powers almost stripped with this Brexit bill, and the Scottish government were basically ignored?
The Tories are venal, but they're not totally stupid, you know. And I think what it's far more likely that they'll try and do is, it's you know what they say about boiling frogs. You know, if you stick a frog in boiling water, the frog will immediately try and jump out. But if you put a frog in cold water and then heat the water up, the frog will stay there. And that's the Tory strategy. They'll gradually try and strip away and chip away at the powers of the Scottish Parliament. Well, exactly. So I don't think that they're as stupid. They know that if they immediately said, right, we're abolishing the Scottish Parliament, we're going to strip it of all its powers, that would immediately cause one almighty constitutional crisis. it would well, no, I think it would. I think it would, because there would be a huge. The Scottish Parliament would pass a bill for a referendum immediately before it was abolished. You know, so the Tories aren't going to do that. They're going to try and slowly chip away at the powers of the Scottish Parliament. That's the big danger that we've got. And I think that the best time for us to have a vote is. It's like most people don't, like that guy that just at the door hasn't got a clue about politics because they don't think about it. They've got no reason to think about it. Because Brexit hasn't happened yet. And if it's not happened yet, why think about it? And some people resent being told that they need to think about something that's not happened yet. And the best time to go for these things is, well, look, it's happened. There it is. You can see the effect that it's going to have. You can't ignore it anymore. And I think the referendum will be after Brexit, I believe. But before 2021. But I really don't see the Tories abolishing the Scottish Parliament. I really don't. Really don't. No, I never say never.
I don't mean abolishing it. Like
I know what you mean.
To say that they're going to be in charge during this emergency period for 5 years, and during that 5 years, to slowly strip away all the power.
I don't trust them.
If they say
no,
it's a state of emergency, who's going to disagree?
I think that would cause I think that would cause a campaign of mass disobedience in Scotland.
But they've done that before, though. They've done that in Northern Ireland when the parties weren't working together.
And they've suspended.
They've suspended it, but they could do the same for us if they want.
Well, to be honest, they could do that right now. They've got the powers to do it, but then there are political consequences for doing that, you know. So they're always going to make a calculation: is this more in their interest to do this, or is it not? And I don't think it is. They see it as being in their interest at the moment. So.
We're a step closer to the feeds I've been able to read on the phone tonight. They're going for the hard Brexit.
Oh yeah.
So we're a step closer.
Oh yeah, but I mean, Brexit has been getting harder and harder and harder the longer it's going on. You know.
Rees-Mogg and his crowd have voted for a hard Brexit and go on.
So there's been another vote tonight, and you can read all about it in the National. Exactly. But I mean, you know, there was some talk today that the Tory Remainers might rebel against the government, and you know, taken together with Labour and the SNP, they might have enough numbers to kind of force an amendment on the customs union, but failed. So I suppose the message was today that even with the kind of Tory Remainer rebels, even with the SNP and Labour all kind of united against it, the kind of hard Brexiteers still got what they wanted. So you're right, and all the Scottish Tories
brings us a step closer.
It does bring us a step closer to no deal. And 10 days ago, it seemed as though that was almost off. So things are changing every day, and things are changing every week. I think they're away for recess from next Tuesday. So we might get a month or so of relative calm, but failed. They tried to bring it forward, but then they shelved it when everybody kicked off. So the autumn, we will see a lot happening, and I think the First Minister's going to have to make a decision, one way or the other, and it will be very, very, very interesting. And yeah, we'll be reporting on it all the way. So I think that's we should probably.
Can I just have a
yes.
last question? In an independent Scotland, would tablet be the breakfast of champions?
In an independent Scotland, we would abolish the Ministry of Defence and replace it with tablet as a clinical weapon.
I think tablets are always the breakfast of champions. Listen, a huge thanks to ScotRev, Peterhead, and please, sign up, like them on Facebook, join up, come to the stall next weekend. And thank you so much for having us today. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much for coming, folks. As Callum says, New Year show this weekend. So we've got a stall there, and very much welcome to come along. In fact, we'd love you to come along and help for that. The next thing we've got after that, the 16th of August, we've got a meeting in the Harbour Lights at 7:30. And then the next event we'll have after that is the Graham Brown Band, and they are coming here, and they're going to be playing about 7 o'clock-ish here, and that's another free event that they're doing. And also on that day, there's these folk that are going to be walking past from Fraserburgh to Ellen on part of the leg of the 500-mile journey. So it's a great sort of day, you know, and they're talking about coming here in the evening as well. So, you know, if you want to get involved in that, you're quite welcome to work with them, just all the way or part of the way. The day before that, they're doing, Banff to Fraserburgh, and the next day after they come here, they're going into Ellen to Port Lethan, so that's great. And then one of the next things we've got after that is November. We've got the gathering in Harton, which is sort of like a open mic, speakers evening, all the rest, and that should be good. Had to bring your own booze. We've got the famous Amanda. We're doing good. We've got the famous Amanda Brown. She's coming up to sing after. So it should be a really good night. If you want to leave contact details, you know, so you can be on the email list, yeah, very much welcome to do. But a lot of you that book tickets on Eventbrite, I've got your emails if you want me to get in contact with you that way. So, thanks very much for coming, folks. Thank you. One last time, thanks very much for the donations of food from the food bank. It's really appreciated from them. And every street stall that we have on a Saturday, we'll be taking collections for that as well. Okay? Thank you. Every time I go to test,
I'm writing the dissertation.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think so. People can change, you know, people can change.
I like your
Take them on Amazon. 7-piece shelter drop.
I have had one drink and I'm falling over.
Well, thanks for tuning in tonight. That's great.
Can you take that?
I mean, I've got loads of